Alright, let me ask you something right at the start. Have you ever felt like the system just keeps moving forward, faster and faster, while you're expected to keep up with fewer resources, less support, and more uncertainty? For millions of seniors across the country, that feeling has been growing stronger every single year. Rising costs, confusing benefit rules, and the constant fear that something you depend on might suddenly change, it's exhausting. But today, something big has happened. Something that could actually shift the direction of how seniors are treated and protected moving forward. After months of debate, pressure, and public attention, the Senate has officially passed a Seniors Protection Bill, pushed hard by Senator Bernie Sanders, and the effects are starting right now. Not next year, not someday in the future, now. And whether you're already retired, planning for retirement, or helping a loved one navigate these systems, what's inside this bill could directly impact your life in ways you may not expect. So in this video, we're going to walk through what this really means. No complicated legal jargon, no confusing political talk, just a clear, human explanation of what's changing, why it matters, and how it could affect you starting today. Because this isn't just another headline, this could be one of those moments people look back on and say, that's when things started to change. Now, let's get into it. You see, for years now, seniors have been caught in a difficult position. On one hand, there's been a growing recognition that older Americans are struggling more than many people realize. On the other hand, meaningful action has often felt slow, delayed, or watered down. That's why this bill gaining traction, and actually passing, is such a significant moment. It didn't happen overnight. It came after mounting pressure from advocacy groups, public concern about inflation, and a louder conversation about dignity in retirement. At the heart of this bill is a simple idea: seniors deserve stronger protection, clearer support systems, and relief from the financial strain that has been quietly building over time. But what does that actually look like in real life? One of the most immediate changes involves protections against unexpected healthcare costs. For many seniors, medical expenses are one of the biggest sources of stress. Even with existing programs in place, out-of-pocket costs can pile up quickly, especially for prescriptions or specialized care. This bill introduces new caps and oversight measures designed to limit how much seniors can be charged in certain situations. And while that might sound like a technical adjustment, in practice it could mean the difference between affording necessary medication and having to make impossible choices. Another major focus of the bill is preventing financial exploitation. Unfortunately, seniors are often targeted by scams, fraud, or even misuse of funds by people they trust. This legislation strengthens monitoring systems and introduces stricter penalties for those who take advantage of older individuals. But more importantly, it creates clearer reporting pathways, making it easier for seniors or their families to speak up without feeling overwhelmed or ignored. Now, something else that's getting a lot of attention, and rightfully so, is the push for better transparency in benefit systems. If you've ever tried to understand how benefits are calculated, adjusted, or distributed, you know how confusing it can be. The rules aren't always easy to follow, and changes can feel unpredictable. This bill requires agencies to provide clearer explanations and more accessible updates, so seniors aren't left guessing about what they're entitled to or why something has changed. And here's where things get even more interesting. The bill also addresses the issue of rising living costs in a more direct way. While it doesn't magically solve inflation, it includes mechanisms that aim to better align support with real-world expenses. That means adjustments could become more responsive to what people are actually experiencing, rather than relying on outdated formulas that don't reflect current conditions. Think about that for a moment. Instead of waiting and hoping for relief, there's now a framework in place that's supposed to respond more quickly when costs go up. That shift alone could have a meaningful impact on how stable retirement feels for many people. Of course, no piece of legislation is perfect, and it's important to understand that this bill is a step, not a final destination. Some critics argue that it doesn't go far enough, especially when it comes to long-term funding or broader systemic reform. Others believe it's a strong foundation that can be built on in the future. But regardless of where you stand, there's no denying that it introduces changes that are already starting to take effect. And that brings us to an important question: what should you actually do with this information? First, it's worth paying attention to how these changes are implemented over the coming weeks and months. Policies on paper don't always translate instantly into real-world results, so staying informed is key. Whether it's updates from official sources or trusted community organizations, keeping yourself in the loop will help you understand how to take advantage of any new protections or benefits. Second, don't hesitate to ask questions. If something about your coverage, benefits, or rights isn't clear, this is exactly the time to seek clarification. The whole point of these changes is to make systems more transparent and accessible, so use that to your advantage. You're not expected to figure everything out on your own. And third, consider sharing this information with others. Sometimes the people who need to hear about these updates the most are the ones least likely to come across them. A simple conversation with a friend, a neighbor, or a family member could make a real difference. Now, let's talk about the bigger picture for a moment, because this isn't just about one bill. It's about a shift in how society is thinking about aging, retirement, and support systems. For a long time, there's been this unspoken assumption that once you reach a certain age, you're expected to manage with whatever is already in place, no matter how outdated or insufficient it might be. But that mindset is starting to change. There's growing recognition that seniors are not a monolithic group. They have diverse needs, experiences, and challenges. Some are relatively comfortable, while others are struggling to make ends meet. Some have strong support networks, while others are navigating everything on their own. A one-size-fits-all approach simply doesn't work anymore. This bill reflects that evolving understanding. It acknowledges that protection isn't just about providing a safety net, it's about ensuring that the net is strong, responsive, and fair. It's about recognizing that dignity in later life isn't a luxury, it's a basic expectation. And let's not forget the role of advocacy in making this happen. Change like this doesn't occur in a vacuum. It's the result of people speaking up, sharing their stories, and demanding better. Whether it's through organized groups, public discussions, or individual voices, that collective effort plays a huge role in shaping policy. So if you've ever felt like your voice doesn't matter, moments like this are a reminder that it actually does. Progress may be slow at times, but it is possible. As we move forward, it will be important to watch how these changes are received and whether they lead to further action. Will this open the door to additional reforms? Will it encourage more comprehensive solutions? Those are questions that only time can answer, but the direction is certainly worth paying attention to. Now, before we wrap up, I want to bring this back to you. Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about legislation or politics, it's about real people and real lives. It's about peace of mind, financial stability, and the ability to live with a sense of security. If this topic matters to you, or if you know someone who could benefit from understanding these changes, make sure you stay connected. Subscribe to the channel, share this video, and keep the conversation going. The more informed we are, the better we can navigate these systems and support one another. And I'd really like to hear from you. What do you think about these changes? Do you feel like they go far enough, or is there more that needs to be done? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because your perspective is an important part of this discussion. Thanks for spending this time with me today. Stay informed, stay aware, and I'll see you in the next update. Alright, before you go, I want you to stay with me for just a few more minutes, because this part really matters. We've talked about the bill, we've broken down what it means, and we've looked at how it could start affecting everyday life, but now comes the part that often gets overlooked: what happens next, and where do you fit into all of this? Because here's the truth, change on paper is one thing, but change in real life, that depends on awareness, action, and people actually understanding what's available to them. And far too often, especially when it comes to seniors, important updates like this don't reach the people who need them the most until much later, sometimes too late. So let me say this clearly, don't assume that everything will just automatically fall into place. Even though this bill has passed, even though it's being talked about, the real impact comes from people staying informed, asking questions, and making sure they're getting the support they're entitled to. Think about how many times policies have changed in the past, but the details remained unclear. Maybe forms were confusing. Maybe instructions weren't explained properly. Maybe someone you know missed out on benefits simply because they didn't realize they qualified. That happens more often than people think, and this is exactly why staying engaged right now is so important. If you're watching this and thinking, okay, this sounds good, but how do I actually make sure this helps me? That's the right question to ask. And the answer starts with paying attention to updates from reliable sources. Over the coming weeks, more information will come out. Clarifications will be made. Agencies will start implementing specific parts of the bill. And during that time, there will be opportunities, real opportunities, to benefit from these changes. But those opportunities don't always come with a loud announcement. Sometimes they show up quietly, in small adjustments, in new options, or in updated guidelines that are easy to miss if you're not actively looking. That's why conversations like this matter. That's why channels like this exist. Because breaking things down in a simple, human way can make the difference between confusion and clarity, between missing out and being prepared. And I also want to talk about something else for a moment, something that doesn't get enough attention when we discuss topics like this. The emotional side of it. For many seniors, navigating financial systems, healthcare rules, and government policies isn't just complicated, it's stressful. It can feel overwhelming, frustrating, and sometimes even discouraging. There's this quiet pressure to figure it out, even when the system itself isn't easy to understand. So if you or someone you care about has ever felt that way, you're not alone. And more importantly, you're not expected to do this all by yourself. One of the most powerful things you can do right now is simply start a conversation. Talk to family members. Talk to friends. Share what you've learned. Ask if they've heard about these changes. Because sometimes, the best support doesn't come from official sources, it comes from people looking out for each other. And let's be honest, information spreads differently today. Not everyone is checking official announcements or reading policy updates. But they are watching videos, talking to neighbors, and listening to people they trust. That means you have the ability to be part of that chain of awareness. You can help make sure that the right information reaches the right people at the right time. Now, as we move forward, it's also important to stay realistic. This bill is a step forward, but it's not the final answer to every challenge seniors face. There will still be gaps. There will still be questions. And there will still be moments where things don't work as smoothly as they should. But progress doesn't happen all at once. It happens in stages. And what we're seeing right now is one of those stages, a moment where attention is being given, where action is being taken, and where the conversation is continuing to grow. And that conversation, it doesn't stop here. In fact, this is where it really begins. Because the more people talk about these issues, the harder it becomes for them to be ignored. The more awareness there is, the more pressure there is for continued improvement. And the more engaged people are, the more likely it is that future changes will reflect real needs, not just assumptions. So if you take anything away from this video, let it be this: stay curious, stay informed, and don't underestimate the value of your voice. Whether it's asking a question, sharing information, or simply staying updated, you're part of this process. And now, let's talk about something simple but important. If you found this video helpful, even in a small way, take a second to support the channel. Not because it's about numbers or metrics, but because it helps keep this kind of information reaching more people who need it. When you like a video, when you share it, when you leave a comment, it tells the platform that this content matters. It helps push it out to others who might not even realize they need to hear it. And in topics like this, that ripple effect can be incredibly powerful. Also, if you haven't already, consider subscribing. That way, you won't miss future updates, especially as more details about this bill start to unfold. Because this isn't a one-time story. This is something that's going to develop over time, and staying connected means you'll always be one step ahead. And I genuinely want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on all of this? Do you feel hopeful about these changes? Do you have concerns? Is there something specific you're wondering about that we didn't cover today? Go ahead and drop it in the comments. Your questions and insights don't just help you, they help everyone watching. Because chances are, if you're thinking about something, someone else is too. As we wrap up, I want to leave you with this thought. Moments like this, when policies shift, when attention turns toward important issues, they don't come around every day. And while it's easy to feel like one person can't make much of a difference, history shows us something very different. Change is built on awareness. It's built on conversations. It's built on people choosing not to ignore what's happening around them. And right now, you're part of that moment. So take what you've learned today, hold on to it, share it, and most importantly, use it. Because information only becomes powerful when it's understood and applied. Thank you for spending this time here. Thank you for being part of this community. And thank you for caring about something that truly matters. Stay informed, stay prepared, and I'll see you in the next one. And there's one more layer to all of this that we really can't ignore, because while we've talked about the practical side, the emotional side, and even the bigger picture, there's still something deeper that deserves your attention, and that's the idea of control. For a lot of seniors, one of the hardest parts of navigating systems like this isn't just the complexity, it's the feeling of losing control. When decisions about your healthcare, your finances, or your future seem to come from somewhere far away, it can feel like you're just reacting instead of actually shaping what happens next. And over time, that feeling can wear people down more than anything else. But moments like this, when a major bill passes, when new protections are introduced, they create an opportunity to take some of that control back. Not all at once, not perfectly, but step by step. Because understanding what's changing gives you something incredibly valuable: awareness. And awareness is where control begins. Think about it this way. If you know that certain costs may now be limited, you can start planning differently. If you know there are stronger protections against fraud, you can feel a bit more secure in your daily life. If you know that transparency is improving, you can ask better questions and expect clearer answers. These might sound like small shifts, but together, they can change how you experience everyday life. And here's something that often gets overlooked: confidence grows from understanding. The more familiar you become with how these systems work, the less intimidating they feel. Instead of seeing them as something confusing or out of reach, you start to see them as tools that you can actually use. Now, does that mean everything suddenly becomes simple? Of course not. There will still be challenges. There will still be moments where things don't make immediate sense. But the difference is, you're no longer approaching those moments from a place of uncertainty alone, you're approaching them with context, with awareness, and with a growing sense of confidence. And that's powerful. I also want to take a moment to talk directly to those of you who might be watching this on behalf of someone else. Maybe you're helping a parent, a grandparent, or another loved one navigate these changes. First of all, that role is incredibly important. Supporting someone through these systems can make a real difference in their quality of life. But it can also be challenging. You might find yourself trying to interpret information, make decisions, or explain things in a way that feels clear and reassuring. And sometimes, it's not easy. That's why staying informed yourself is just as important. The more you understand, the better you can guide someone else through the process. And don't forget, this doesn't have to be a one-person effort. Involve others when you can. Share information within your family. Compare notes. Ask questions together. Because when more people are engaged, the burden becomes lighter, and the support becomes stronger. Now let's shift for a second and talk about timing, because timing plays a bigger role here than many people realize. Right now, we're in that early phase where changes are being introduced, explained, and gradually implemented. This is the window where awareness has the greatest impact. Why? Because early awareness gives you an advantage. It gives you time to prepare, to adjust, and to make decisions before things become widely known or fully rolled out. It puts you in a position where you're not just reacting to changes, you're anticipating them. And that's something you don't want to miss. Over the next few months, you're likely to hear more about specific details: how certain provisions are being applied, what steps need to be taken to access new protections, and how different groups might be affected in different ways. Some of that information will be straightforward, and some of it might require a bit more attention to fully understand. But here's the key: don't tune it out. Even if it feels repetitive or overly detailed at times, those updates are where the real value is. That's where you'll find the practical information that can actually make a difference in your day-to-day life. And if you ever feel unsure about something, don't hesitate to slow down and take a closer look. There's no rush to understand everything instantly. What matters is that you stay engaged and keep building your understanding over time. Another important point to consider is how these changes might interact with your existing situation. Everyone's circumstances are different. Your financial setup, your healthcare needs, your support system, all of these factors influence how a policy affects you personally. So as you hear about different aspects of the bill, try to connect them to your own experience. Ask yourself, how does this apply to me, or what could this mean for my situation? That kind of reflection helps turn general information into something practical and relevant. And if the answer isn't immediately clear, that's okay. Sometimes it takes a bit of digging, a conversation, or even professional advice to fully understand the impact. The important thing is that you're asking the question in the first place. Now, let's talk about expectations for a moment. It's easy to hear about a major bill passing and assume that everything will improve quickly and smoothly. And while there's certainly reason to be hopeful, it's also important to stay grounded. Implementation takes time. Systems need to adjust. Processes need to be updated. And sometimes, there can be delays or complications along the way. That doesn't mean the changes aren't real, it just means they're part of a larger process. So if things don't feel different right away, don't get discouraged. Keep paying attention. Keep asking questions. And keep looking for those moments where the changes start to show up in real, tangible ways. Because they will. And when they do, being prepared will make all the difference. Before we close this out, I want to circle back to something we touched on earlier, but this time from a slightly different angle, the idea of community. It's easy to think of topics like this as individual concerns, something each person has to figure out on their own. But in reality, there's a lot of strength in shared understanding. When people come together, share information, and support each other, the entire experience becomes more manageable. So consider this an invitation, not just to stay informed yourself, but to be part of a larger conversation. Whether that's within your family, your neighborhood, or even right here in the comments, your participation matters. Because at the end of the day, awareness spreads through connection. It grows when people talk, when they share, and when they look out for one another. And that's something no policy can replace, but it can certainly be strengthened by moments like this. So as you move forward from this video, take a moment to reflect on what you've heard. Think about how it applies to you, who you might share it with, and what steps you might want to take next. There's no need to rush. Just stay engaged, stay aware, and keep building your understanding one step at a time. And as always, thank you for being here, for listening, and for being part of this ongoing conversation. It truly means more than you might realize. Take care, stay informed, and I'll see you again very soon.